Hello, everyone. I'm Jack Fisher, and welcome to my world. And whenever I talk about Star Wars, I always feel an extra twinge of reluctance. I am very aware of the less than pleasant discourse it has garnered in recent years. I know as well as anyone with an internet connection that it doesn't take much to draw the ire of toxic fans, grifters, and trolls. And be that as it may, I still love Star Wars. I've been a fan ever since I was a kid, and I try not to let bad politics or discourse prevent me from enjoying it. For me, the original trilogy will always be held in high regard. But I admit everything after that has been mixed for the most part. Sure, I liked the prequel movies as well as the sequel trilogy, if only for the spectacle. But even with the best moments from those movies, they could never match the experience I got from watching A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back. There's also plenty I could say about tie-in shows like Clone Wars or The Mandalorian. But to me, the core Star Wars experience comes from the movies. And to date, only one modern Star Wars movie has come close to matching the experience of the original trilogy. And that movie is Star Wars Rogue One. And beyond just being one of my favorite movies of all time, I would go so far as to say that this movie is the perfect modern Star Wars movie. By that, I don't just mean that it works within the Star Wars canon, or that it was well made, well acted, and successful. I genuinely believe that Rogue One truly captures that special essence that makes Star Wars so iconic. And I say that as someone who was initially skeptical of the movie. When I first heard about Rogue One, I thought, why do we need an entire movie about how the Death Star plans got to the Rebel Alliance? And why do we need to know about who was involved? Those reservations aside, it's still a Star Wars movie. So I gave it a chance. And I am so glad that I did, because watching that movie didn't just give greater weight to the destruction of the Death Star. It made this iconic part of Star Wars canon that much more impactful. And that in and of itself is a hell of an achievement, because even before the movie came out, we the audience knew how it would end. We knew that whatever the rebels did to get those Death Star plans was ultimately a success. So how can that story within Rogue One possibly be dramatic? This is where the characters and setup of Star Wars Rogue One really shines. Jyn Erso, Saw Gerrera, Cassian Andor, K2SO, Chirrut Îmwe. None of these characters have ever been mentioned before. We had no reason to care for them beyond their role in getting the plans for the Death Star. But over the course of a single movie, Rogue One got me to care about every one of them. And a big part of why the movie succeeded revolves around how distinct these characters were. None of them are trained Jedi, former Sith, or archetypical chosen ones. There are no ties to the Skywalkers, the Palpatines, or the Solos in any way, shape, or form. And in many respects, these characters represent the less glamorous parts of the rebellion, the ones who end up fighting the less iconic battles within the streets and in the shadows. These battles might not be as big a spectacle as the Battle of Yavin or the Battle of Endor, but they're still battles that needed to be fought. And in that vein, Jyn Erso, Cassian Andor, and Saw Gerrera are perfect representations of those who fight in those battles. For Jyn, it's deeply personal. She's no Jedi or soldier, but her father, Galen Erso, plays a major role, albeit unwittingly, in building the Death Star. He was forced at gunpoint by Orson Krennic, the main antagonist of Rogue One, to complete his work, even after he murders Galen's wife right in front of him. Jyn is there to witness this atrocity. It doesn't just provide a basic catalyst, it gives her a more personal reason for opposing the Empire. It also helps supplement the reasons for Cassian and Saw, two characters who directly experience the Empire's oppression. Saw is this hardened but war-weary old man who thinks the Empire is too strong now. And Cassian is an intelligence officer who lacks the skills of a Jedi, but shares in Jyn's determination to take down Imperial forces. Along the way, they end up finding and reprogramming an Imperial droid, K2SO, to help them in their mission. They also meet up with Chirrut and Baze on planet Jedha, where Kyber crystals are being mined to function as a power source for the Death Star. Every one of these characters has to watch as the Empire builds mechanisms for further securing their power, ensuring that the tyranny that has consumed the galaxy will never stop. And by taking those Kyber crystals, the same power source used to make lightsabers no less, that just adds more insult to injury. It gives the Empire an even greater aura of evil, taking something that was once holy and sacred and using it to make this planet-destroying weapon. After getting a brief glimpse of how powerful the Death Star could be, it puts the whole Alliance in a dire predicament. The prevailing sentiment is that the Empire cannot be defeated at this point. Even when Jyn says her father built a flaw into the Death Star that they could exploit, the Rebel Alliance initially rejects her proposal to steal the schematics. And this decision comes after Jyn's father dies in her arms. So now, Jyn has lost both of her parents to the Empire. But she also happens to be one of the few who knows about the Death Star's built-in flaws. And if she's going to get those schematics to the rebels, she has to do it without the Alliance's support. This effectively sets the stage for what amounts to a one-way mission. And at the same time, Krennic is on Darth Vader's bad side, having that potentially critical intel leak. He ends up getting one more chance to make it right. And much like Jyn and the rebels, failure is not an option for him. The tone, the setup, and the overall arc of the story is clear. This is not going to be like Luke's famous Death Star run. Whoever goes on this mission to get those schematics will not be coming out of it a celebrated hero. But they still willingly choose to embark on this mission, going against direct orders and any semblance of self-preservation. It's a harrowing act, but it's also tragic, because as the last act of Rogue One unfolds, we see characters like Chirrut and K2SO make the ultimate sacrifice for others. The way everything leading up to it escalates, there's nothing callous or contrived about it. Even if these characters had to die in order to salvage their mission, their sacrifice still has an impact. I still remember getting chills when I saw Chirrut chanting as he walked through Imperial blaster fire. And when K2SO says goodbye after helping Andor and Jyn get to the antenna, I really felt it. It's one thing to get emotionally invested in characters you've been following over the course of a movie trilogy, but this was just a single movie. But despite this constraint, Rogue One makes every moment count. Every opportunity is taken to establish the bonds between these characters. So when one of them has to make a difficult choice, nothing about it seems forced. Everyone involved exercises a level of agency that's difficult to pull off in any prequel or sequel. It's also what I feel was so lacking in both the prequel and sequel trilogies. In those movies, the audience was expected to care because they see so many familiar names and faces, be it a young Anakin Skywalker, an old Luke Skywalker, or Obi-Wan Kenobi at any age. By contrast, Rogue One convinces us to care about these characters that we've never met before, all within a story for which the ending is already predetermined. The fact that it succeeds so well is remarkable, but ultimately, I think what makes Rogue One such a great Star Wars movie comes back to that personal impact. The original trilogy is iconic for many reasons, but it still resonates with fans after so many years because of how it made us feel. Many of those fans, myself included, remember what it was like when we first saw the Death Star blow up, or when Darth Vader told Luke he was his father. These are powerful moments that stuck with us, moments that give the Star Wars mythos so much dramatic weight. And for the most part, those moments were seriously lacking in the prequel and sequel trilogies. The reasons for that are many. And sure, those movies had their moments, but Rogue One managed to give this small but critical chapter in the Star Wars mythos a special kind of resonance. To some extent, it had to, since every character involved was an unknown. And it succeeded because it took the right approach, prioritizing character development and emotional drama over spectacle and lightsaber battles. Ultimately, it ended up succeeding so well that it made rewatching A New Hope even more engaging. I really felt this firsthand, because about a month after seeing Rogue One, I found myself watching A New Hope again. And when it got to the part where the rebels prepared their attack on the Death Star, the whole setup hits a little bit harder. Because you know Luke never could have taken that final shot had it not been for Jyn, Andor, K2SO, and the rest of her crew. And seeing that iconic moment when the Death Star explodes, that just makes the story within Rogue One that much more powerful. There really is something to be said about a movie that accomplishes all of this yet still somehow fly under the radar. Yes, the movie was a success on most levels. It made over $1 billion at the box office. It was also well received by fans and critics alike. But it also feels like it ended up getting lost in the shuffle. Because a year later, The Last Jedi came out, complete with all its flaws and controversies. Then, shortly after that, Solo came out, and its failure ended up drawing more attention than any of Rogue One's successes. But even today, if you bring up Rogue One in Star Wars circles, most fans do see it in a positive light. But, often in the same breath, those same fans will bemoan how Star Wars has lost its way. Even when good content comes out, be it The Mandalorian or Andor, the flaws tend to get more attention than the successes. And since Rogue One has fewer flaws than most, it tends to get forgotten for all the wrong reasons. It's frustrating in that it really reflects the current state of Star Wars as a franchise. Now, there's an entire industry and subculture built around criticizing everything it does wrong. But whatever the state of the franchise might be at the moment, Star Wars Rogue One still stands out. It's a movie that needs no sequels or prequels. It is a singular, concise Star Wars movie that captures all the relevant themes. At its core, Star Wars is really at its best when it tells the story of scrappy, good-hearted rebels fighting against an overwhelming force of tyranny. To Jyn Erso, fighting the Empire was a cause that she didn't have to take on. The same could be said for Saw and/or Chirrut. The odds were against them, and victory was bound to come at a high price. But in that final scene, in that moment when Jyn and Andor stood together amidst their final moments, you could really tell that they had no regrets. They know they did the right thing. And they made this sacrifice willingly and gladly. It's such a powerful act, one that symbolizes what it truly means to be a hero. It doesn't matter if it happens today or a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. The story of Star Wars Rogue One was a truly incredible experience. And for fans of any generation, it will always be a true testament to why Star Wars is such an endearing saga. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and may the Force be with you.